The room smelled like roasted turkey and lemon dish soap. The overhead light was too bright, the kind that flattens faces and makes every smile look rehearsed. I noticed it because my mother had just adjusted it, twisted the dimmer up a notch as if clarity would make the moment prettier. It didn't. We were halfway through dinner when she did it. No warning, no build-up. Just lifted her glass, slightly cleared her throat, and said it like she was stating the weather. Some people in this family actually understand what real effort looks like. Her eyes didn't land on me at first. They slid across the table, slow and deliberate, before settling on my sister Lauren. Lauren didn't look surprised. She never does. She just leaned back in her chair and smiled the kind of smile that says she already knew the ending. Then my mother finished the sentence. And some people, she added, her voice calm and neat, are just very good at staying comfortable. That was the first snap. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a clean break inside my chest like a wire pulled too tight for too long. If you've ever had family treat you like you don't matter, like your effort only counts if it's loud, hit like subscribe, and stay with me. Because this isn't about yelling, it's about what happens when the quiet one finally stops paying the bill. The table went still after that. Forks hovered. Glasses paused midair. The hum of the dishwasher in the kitchen filled the silence, steady and irritating, like it was mocking me for staying quiet too long. Lauren lifted her wine glass and gave a small, satisfied nod. Not to me, to my mother. I felt my fingers curl into my napkin. The fabric twisted tight, cutting into my palm. I didn't look at anyone. I stared at the grain in the table, at the thin crack near my plate that no one ever fixed because it wasn't visible unless you sat where I sat. My mother smiled. She thought she'd said something motivational. She always does. Lauren works hard, she continued. She pushes herself. She's always moving, always chasing something. That's ambition. Lauren finally looked at me then. Just for a second, long enough to let it land. I took a sip of water. The glass clicked softly when I set it down. The sound felt louder than it should have. You know, my mother added, tilting her head, some people could learn from that, if they really wanted to. That was the second snap. I lifted my eyes and said it, before I could soften it, before I could explain it, before I could talk myself out of it the way I always did. Then I'll stop covering your rent. My voice didn't shake. It surprised me how steady it sounded, like I'd rehearsed it even though I hadn't. Lauren's reaction was immediate. She choked on her wine, coughing hard enough that it splashed onto the table. She grabbed a napkin, her face flushing, red eyes wide, not with embarrassment, but with panic. What she croaked. My mother laughed. A short, dismissive sound. Emily, don't be dramatic. That was the gaslight. Quick. Automatic. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't repeat myself. I just looked at Lauren. Every month, I said, I'm done. The room shifted, not loudly, but the air changed like pressure dropping before a storm. My father cleared his throat. He always does when he doesn't want to pick a side. He stared at his plate like it might give him instructions. Let's not do this here, my mother said, her smile tightening. You're making everyone uncomfortable. I almost laughed. Almost. I didn't bring it up, I said. You did. Lauren slammed her napkin onto the table. You're seriously doing this now, she snapped, after everything I've been dealing with. There it was. Not gratitude, not surprise. Entitlement. I didn't say anything until you called me comfortable, I replied. So here we are. My mother's eyes narrowed. Her tone sharpened. You act like you're some kind of martyr, she said. Helping your sister doesn't make you special. That was the third snap. Clean. Final. I never said it did, I answered. But pretending it never happened doesn't make it disappear. Lauren laughed, sharp and humorless. You love playing the victim, she said. You sit there quietly and then explode when you don't get applause. I felt my jaw tighten. I tasted metal. I kept my hands flat on the table so they wouldn't shake. I didn't explode, I said. I stopped. My mother leaned forward, her voice low now, controlled. This is selfish, she said. Family doesn't keep score. I looked at her then, really looked at her, at the crease between her brows, at the way she held her fork like a pointer, always directing, always measuring. I didn't keep score, I said. I kept paying. Silence again. Thicker this time. Lauren scoffed. So you're just going to let me lose my place? You're really okay with that? I nodded once. Yes. She stared at me like she was seeing a stranger. You think you're better than me now, she said. No, I replied. I think I'm done being responsible for you. My father shifted in his chair. Emily. He started, then stopped. The word hung there useless. My mother exhaled sharply through her nose. You're being cruel, she said. Over one comment. I shook my head, slowly. It wasn't one comment, I said. It was years of them. Lauren pushed back from the table, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. You always do this, she said. You bottle things up and then punish everyone when you finally crack. I stood, not fast, not slow, just enough to let the movement speak. I didn't crack, I said. I set a boundary. My mother's face hardened. The warmth drained out of it like someone had flipped a switch. If you walk away from this, she said, each word clipped, don't expect us to see you the same way. That was her final line, the one meant to scare me back into place. I met her eyes and felt something settle inside my chest. Heavy, solid, quiet. I already know how you see me, I said. Then I turned toward the kitchen, past the hum of the dishwasher, past the table where I'd made myself small for years, and walked away without another word. Behind me, no one followed. The night didn't end when I walked into the kitchen. It stretched. It lingered. It followed me like a low-grade fever that refused to break. I stood at the sink longer than necessary, pretending to rinse a glass that was already clean. The dishwasher clicked, paused, clicked again. Somewhere behind me, chairs scraped, voices dropped, then rose, then stopped when they remembered I could still hear them. No one came after me. That shouldn't have hurt, but it did. I dried my hands on a paper towel and noticed they were steady. That surprised me more than anything else. For years, confrontation had made my body react before my mind could catch up. Tight chest, shaky fingers, the urge to apologize just to end the tension. None of that happened. Something had shifted. Quietly. Permanently. I leaned against the counter and let myself remember when this pattern started back when we were kids and the stakes were smaller, but the rules were already set. Lauren learned early how to stay visible. She knew how to sigh loudly while doing homework, how to announce when she was exhausted, how to turn every small task into a performance. My mother rewarded that, praised it, told relatives about it on the phone, like it was proof of good parenting. I learned something different. I learned how to finish chores before anyone noticed they needed to be done, how to clean the bathroom after everyone went to bed, how to fix things quietly so no one had to talk about them. I learned that attention didn't follow effort. It followed noise. When something went wrong, I fixed it. When something went right, Lauren explained it. And slowly, without anyone saying it out loud, the story formed. Lauren was driven. Lauren was ambitious. Lauren was trying. I was just there. By the time we were adults, the roles were locked in. Lauren bounced between jobs that sounded impressive when she described them. Marketing projects, event planning, consulting. Every opportunity was always one connection away from taking off. Every setback was temporary. Every delay had a reason that wasn't her fault. I chose stability, a job that didn't sound exciting at dinner parties, data, systems, quiet problem solving, no clients to charm, no rooms to work, just deadlines, spreadsheets, and results no one clapped for. It paid well. It paid on time. It paid consistently. That part mattered to me. The first time Lauren called asking for help, it didn't feel like a decision. It felt like instinct. Her voice was tight, too tight to ignore. I messed up the timing, she said. Just this once. I'll pay you back as soon as my commission clears. I didn't ask questions. I didn't hesitate. I opened my banking app while she was still talking. The confirmation screen flashed. Done. I told her it was temporary. I meant it. The second month felt similar. The third felt uncomfortable. By the fourth, it felt expected. The tone of her calls changed. Less urgency. More assumption. Can you send it by Friday? The landlord's getting annoying. This is just until things stabilize. They never stabilized. I adjusted instead. I stopped booking trips, stopped replacing things that wore out, stopped saying yes to dinners that cost more than I wanted to admit. I built my budget around her, rent the way people build it around a car payment. My mother never asked how Lauren managed to stay afloat. She praised her resilience, admired her grind, told people how hard her oldest daughter was working. No one noticed my life shrinking. No one noticed because it happened quietly. That was my fault. I let it. I thought staying calm made me mature. I thought absorbing pressure made me strong. I thought being the reliable one meant I was doing something right. But reliability without recognition turns into invisibility, and invisibility turns into resentment if you're not careful. The voices from the dining room pulled me back. Lauren was crying now, loudly, on purpose. She humiliated me, she said, in front of everyone. My mother murmured something soothing. I couldn't hear the words, just the tone. Protective, familiar. I walked down the hallway and closed the guest room door behind me. The click of the latch sounded final. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at my phone. Notifications blinked on the screen. A message from Lauren popped up almost immediately. "You didn't have to do that." I didn't reply. Another message followed. "We'll talk later. You owe me that." I set the phone face down. That was the moment I understood something I hadn't fully allowed myself to see before. I didn't owe her anything. I had been paying not because she asked well, but because I was afraid of what would happen if I stopped. Afraid of being seen as selfish. Afraid of disrupting the story my family was comfortable with. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling fan as it spun slowly, casting shadows that crossed and uncrossed like lines I'd been afraid to draw. Down the hall, my mother's voice cut through the air, sharp enough to carry. "She's always been like this," she said, "quiet until she explodes." That sentence landed harder than the insult at the table. Always been like this. As if my silence had been a flaw instead of a survival skill. As if my restraint had been a warning sign instead of a boundary I never learned how to enforce. I smiled to myself. A small, humorless smile. They thought this was an outburst. They thought this would pass. They thought I would cool off, apologize, and resume my role by next month's rent deadline. They were wrong, because what they didn't see, what they never saw, was that nothing about tonight was impulsive. It felt sharp because it was overdue. I wasn't angry, I was finished. That difference mattered. I picked up my phone, opened my banking app, and looked at the scheduled transfer I'd set months ago. Same amount, same date, automatic, reliable. I canceled it. No message, no announcement. Just one tap and a quiet confirmation screen. Done. The house went on without me. Voices rose and fell, doors opened and closed. At some point, the dishwasher finished its cycle and beeped softly like punctuation. I rolled onto my side and closed my eyes, my heart beating slow and steady. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like space. The fallout didn't come all at once. It came in waves, small at first, then sharper, then constant. The morning after the dinner, the house felt hollow. Not quiet hollow, like sound passed through it without landing anywhere. I woke before my alarm stared at the ceiling and waited for the familiar rush of guilt to arrive. It didn't. My phone lay on the nightstand, dark and still. That was new, too. Usually Lauren would have filled it by now, apologies disguised as explanations, urgency dressed up as vulnerability. Instead, nothing. I showered, dressed, and packed my bag with the same routine precision I always had. The mirror showed the same face, no visible change, but something underneath felt locked into place, like a bone that had finally healed wrong and stopped trying to move. At work, the day unfolded normally. Emails, meetings, numbers lining up the way they always did. My manager nodded at me in passing, thanked me for catching an issue in a report before it became a problem. No applause, no announcement, just acknowledgement. That steadiness grounded me, reminded me who I was outside that house. By noon, the first message came through. "Mom, we need to talk about last night." I didn't respond. An hour later, "Mom, your sister is really upset. You didn't have to embarrass her like that." Still nothing. The third message landed just after 3. "Mom, family doesn't turn their backs on each other." That one almost worked. Almost. But I'd already seen the pattern too clearly to step back into it. The language was familiar. Not about what I'd carried, not about what it cost me, just about how my refusal disrupted the balance they preferred. I finished my workday and walked to my car under a sky that looked heavier than it needed to be. The air smelled like rain, sharp and metallic. I sat behind the wheel for a moment before turning the key, letting the quiet settle. Lauren called while I was still parked. I let it ring. She called again, then again. On the fourth call, I answered, not because I owed her, but because I wanted to hear it. Clean, unfiltered. "What is wrong with you?" she snapped before I could say hello. I held the phone away from my ear slightly, letting her voice spill into the space between us. "You don't get to do that," she continued. "You don't get to just pull the rug out from under me and act like you're some kind of hero." "I didn't act," I said. My voice surprised me again. Calm, flat. I stopped. "That money was temporary," she said. "You know that." I laughed once. A short sound. No humor in it. "Temporary doesn't last 14 months, I replied. She went quiet for half a second, then regrouped. "You make good money," she said. "You weren't hurting." There it was, the justification. "I was adjusting," I said. "There's a difference. You're being dramatic," she shot back. "Mom says you've always been sensitive." I tightened my grip on the steering wheel, felt the leather creak under my fingers. "I'm not sensitive," I said. "I'm finished." She exhaled sharply. "So what, you just don't care if I get evicted?" "I care," I said. "I'm just not fixing it." "That's the same thing," she snapped. "No," I replied. "It's not." She started talking faster than words overlapping themselves. Excuses, timelines, promises that sounded exactly like the ones before, just rearranged. I waited until she ran out of breath. "This isn't a conversation," I said. "It's a notice." "What does that even mean?" she demanded. "It means there won't be another transfer," I said. "No matter how bad it sounds, no matter how you frame it." "You're unbelievable," she said. "After everything I've been through." I thought of the canceled plans, the smaller grocery trips, the quiet panic when my own savings dipped lower than I was comfortable admitting. "I've been through it too," I said, just quietly. She hung up on me. That night, my mother called. I almost didn't answer. Almost. But something in me wanted to hear how she'd reframe it this time. Her voice was controlled, measured. The tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable. "I don't understand why you're doing this," she said. "You know how fragile Lauren's situation is." "I do," I replied. "Then why would you make it worse?" I leaned back against my couch and stared at the blank TV screen. "I didn't make it worse," I said. "I stopped making it invisible." She sighed, long and theatrical. "You always take things so personally. That line used to unravel me. Tonight it didn't." "You made it personal when you compared us," I said. "I just corrected the math." Silence, then colder. "So you're really choosing this," she said, "over your own sister." I closed my eyes. "I'm choosing myself," I replied, for the first time. She scoffed. "That sounds selfish." "Then call it that," I said. She didn't speak for a moment. When she did, her voice had changed. Sharper, less polished. "Don't be surprised when people start seeing you differently." I felt the old fear stir. Just slightly. The instinct to smooth it over, to retreat. I didn't. "They already do," I said, "as long as I'm useful." The line went dead. The next few weeks were a study in pressure. Messages from extended family, carefully worded, curious, concerned, all asking versions of the same question without asking it outright. "Is everything okay?" "Your mom sounds stressed. Lauren's having a hard time." I responded to none of them. At work, life stayed steady, predictable. My routines held, my savings stabilized. The weight I hadn't realized I was carrying lifted slowly like a fog thinning without announcement. Lauren tried again. Late-night text this time. Softer. Sadder. "I never meant to make you feel used. I thought you understood. We're sisters." I stared at the words until they blurred. Understanding without consent isn't understanding. It's assumption. I didn't reply. A week later, my mother sent one last message. "I hope you're happy." I looked at it for a long time. Then I typed back, "I'm calm." I set the phone down and felt the truth of it settle into my bones. They were waiting for me to crack, to miss the roll, to come back quietly and fix what they didn't want to face. But this wasn't a pause. It was a break. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was standing on the edge of something fragile. I felt planted, solid, unmovable. The pressure didn't disappear. It changed shape. Without the constant drain, my days felt wider, but my mind stayed alert, like it was waiting for something to jump out from the dark. I kept expecting regret to hit me all at once, some dramatic collapse, some wave of guilt strong enough to knock me back into place. It never came. Instead, there was clarity, slow, uncomfortable, honest. I started noticing how much space I had been giving away, not just money, attention, energy, time. My nervous system had been tuned for years to react to Lauren's emergencies before they even arrived. I'd trained myself to flinch at my phone lighting up. Now when it buzzed, I checked it calmly. Sometimes I didn't check it at all. That alone felt rebellious. At work, something subtle shifted. I wasn't performing differently, but I was standing differently. Shoulders back, jaw unclenched. I spoke less, but when I did, people listened. Meetings paused for my input instead of moving past it. One afternoon, my manager asked me to stay behind. I almost laughed at the instinctive flicker of fear. Old wiring, old house. He closed the conference room door and leaned against the table. "I want you to know," he said, "the systems you've been maintaining, they're the reason nothing's fallen apart this quarter." I nodded, waited. "We're restructuring," he continued, "and I want you leading the transition. No applause, no ceremony, just trust." I walked back to my desk with a weight in my chest that felt nothing like anxiety. It felt earned, solid, real. That night I met Megan for coffee. Same place, same corner table, same burnt sugar smell hanging in the air. She looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "You look different," she said. "I feel quieter," I replied. She smiled slightly. "That's what peace looks like on you." I wrapped my hands around the cup, felt the warmth sink into my palms. "They think I'm being cruel," I said. Megan didn't rush to reassure me. She never did. "Are you?" she asked. I thought about the canceled transfer, the unanswered messages, Lauren scrambling without my cushion. "No," I said. "I'm being accurate." Megan nodded once. "Support shouldn't erase the person giving it. You finally stopped disappearing." That sentence stayed with me longer than it should have, because she was right. I had been disappearing. Slowly, willingly, convincing myself it was maturity when it was actually avoidance. The next time Lauren reached out, her tone was different. Not angry, not demanding, afraid. Her voicemail came through late, past midnight. Her voice was thinner, stripped of its usual confidence. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do," she said. "I didn't think you'd really stop." I listened to it once, then again. I didn't call back. That was the hardest part. Not because I wanted to save her, but because I had to sit with the knowledge that she might fall and that it wouldn't be my fault. My mother escalated when sympathy didn't work. She showed up at my apartment unannounced one Saturday morning, knocked twice, hard. I opened the door and felt the familiar tightening in my chest. Not fear, anticipation. She walked in without waiting for an invitation, eyes scanning the room like she was looking for evidence. "You seem fine," she said almost accusingly. "I am," I replied. She turned to face me, arms crossed. "Lauren isn't." "I know. That doesn't bother you?" she asked. I met her gaze, held it. "It bothers me," I said. "It just doesn't control me anymore." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You're acting like you're above us," she said. "No," I answered. "I'm acting like I'm done being underneath." She shook her head, frustrated. "You always make things so absolute." I shrugged. "That's what happens when boundaries finally show up." She stepped closer, lowered her voice like she was sharing a secret. "If you don't help her," she said, "people are going to talk." There it was, the real threat. I smiled slightly. "They already are." She stared at me, searching for the crack, the guilt, the old version of me that would fold just to make the discomfort stop. She didn't find it. "You've changed," she said finally. "Yes," I replied. "On purpose." She left without another word. The door clicked shut behind her, and the silence that followed felt clean. Earned. That night I lay in bed and thought about how long it had taken me to get here. How many times I'd mistaken endurance for strength. How often I'd let myself be defined by what I could absorb instead of what I deserved. Lauren texted again a few days later. I had to move. No accusation, no explanation, just that. I stared at the message for a long time, then I typed back, "I hope you're safe." I didn't offer money. I didn't ask questions. I set the phone down and felt the line inside me hold. For the first time, I wasn't waiting for forgiveness. I wasn't waiting for understanding. I wasn't waiting to be invited back into the role that had nearly hollowed me out. I was standing in the space I'd carved for myself, and I wasn't moving. The quiet that followed wasn't empty. It was deliberate. Weeks passed without drama, which felt unnatural at first. No emergencies. No late-night calls wrapped in panic. No subtle reminders of what I used to do. The silence wasn't peaceful in the beginning, it was watchful, like my life was holding its breath, waiting to see if I'd flinch. I didn't. Lauren stopped texting altogether. I heard about her through other people instead. Secondhand updates carefully delivered. She's staying with a friend. She's trying to figure things out. She's really struggling. Each sentence carried an expectation. A pause afterward. A chance for me to step back in. I never did. My mother tried once more weeks later with a message that felt rehearsed. "We can't keep living like strangers." I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Then I typed back, "We were strangers when I was paying. This is just honest." She didn't respond. That was when I knew the power had shifted. Not dramatically, not publicly, but in a way that couldn't be undone. Life settled into a rhythm I didn't realize I'd been missing. I cooked without rushing, slept without bracing for interruption, made plans that didn't involve backup money or emotional labor I'd need to provide later. At work, the transition project moved forward under my lead. People deferred to me without question, trusted my judgment, let my decisions stand. I didn't have to prove anything. That mattered more than I expected. One evening, months later, I ran into Lauren by accident. A grocery store. Fluorescent lights. A narrow aisle with too little room to avoid each other. She looked smaller. Not physically. In posture. In presence. Her confidence no longer filled the space ahead of her. She froze when she saw me. "Emily," she said. "Lauren." We stood there for a moment, suspended between who we were and who we'd become. "I didn't think you'd really walk away," she said quietly. "I didn't walk away," I replied. I stepped back. She swallowed. "You could have helped a little." I shook my head. A little never stays little. She nodded once like she already knew that, like she'd learned it the hard way. "I had to change things," she said. "It wasn't optional anymore." I know I answered. That was it. No apology, no reconciliation, just acknowledgement. We went separate ways down separate aisles, and I felt no urge to look back. That night my mother called. I let it ring twice before answering. Her voice was softer than I remembered. "Your sister told me she saw you," she said. "Yes, she's different now." "So am I." Silence stretched between us. "I didn't realize how much you were doing," she said finally. The sentence was incomplete. No apology attached, no ownership. I didn't rush to fill the gap. "I see that now," she added quieter. I closed my eyes. "Seeing it now doesn't change what it cost me," I said. "But I'm not asking you to fix it." Another pause. "I don't know how to make this right," she admitted. "That's okay," I replied. "I'm not offering a role." She exhaled slowly. "You've really changed." "Yes," I said again. "And I'm not undoing it to make anyone comfortable." She didn't argue. When we hung up, I sat on the couch and listened to the low hum of the city outside my window, cars passing, voices drifting up from the street, life moving forward without waiting for permission. For years I thought strength meant holding everything together. I was wrong. Strength was letting it fall apart when it wasn't mine to carry. I never went back to paying Lauren's rent. I never stepped into the mediator role again. I showed up when I wanted to. I left when I needed to. I stopped explaining my choices to people who only valued them when they benefited. There was no big reunion, no tearful apology scene, no moment where everyone finally understood me. There was just distance, clean, quiet, necessary. And in that distance, I found something I'd been taught to postpone my entire life: Peace. Not the kind you earn by sacrificing yourself, the kind you protect by choosing yourself once and then again every single day.